chance to do one thing that every team in the country can't do. We got a chance to step up, man. We got a chance to step on the ledge, you know what I mean? And to me, I think it's a free fall. To be elite, you got to take a free fall. That means you can't be afraid to go to the edge. And coach said, jump. You said, how far, coach? Where you want me to go? Every guy got a chance to do that today. If you're elite, grab somebody today. Take it with you. There's no more average in this program. There's no more average in this program.
All right, here we are, college football right around the corner, and we're going to talk about the win total locks of the year. Now, I'm not going to try to lock down any of these preseason props that you could have on like the Heisman or any of these awards. Like I bet, for example, Damian Martinez, Doak Walker, I think that that's a pretty solid bet, good value bet. This is going to be simply evening out the odds. We're going to pick win totals. This will be the first 10 of the Walk That Line segment. Comment down below who you think is a lock to hit over or under their win total here in 2024. And then also like the video so that way other people can see it and come across it the way that you did on this very fine day. All right, here we go. We're going to start with the Georgia Bulldogs, 10.5, and an Alabama 9.5. I want to talk about both of these together. So Georgia, to me, I had a hard time finding a second loss for Georgia, just based on the fact that all of these big games, I have a feeling that they're going to be able to navigate through that, be battle-tested, be the most battle-tested, prepared team in most of those games. I think I have a hard time just seeing Georgia in general drop multiple games with their talent and with how good they are, even if they play 5 top 15 opponents. I think you could see Clemson fall off a cliff there. I think Tennessee's a bad matchup. I think Alabama early in the season is not going to be great for Georgia. When Georgia catches these teams, they catch them at the right time. So even though their schedule on paper is really tough, I think that Georgia's schedule is misleading, and they're going to end up going 11-1. And the only reason that this is not 11, and it is indeed 10.5 wins, is simply because of how tough that schedule is. How about Alabama over under of 9.5? I'm taking that over. They play Georgia, so it's risky right there, but that basically guarantees, if you are a buyer in my logic here, that guarantees for you that at least one of these two will hit. Because if Alabama does beat Georgia in Tuscaloosa, I have a hard time seeing Alabama go any worse than 10-2. But regardless of that, I have a hard time seeing Alabama go any worse than 10-2. The bottom line is this. It was a lot harder for me to justify a second loss than it was for a third loss. Like, I was a lot closer to 11-1 than I was to 9-3 for Alabama. They still have a ton of talent. They got a solid offensive line. They're going to have a good run game. They're going to have a good front seven still. There are going to be a little bit to work with there with Alabama, but Kalen DeBoer is a great coach who hired a good staff. I think that Alabama's going to do really well this year, and 10 wins, even with a loss to Georgia, is probably on the table here. Louisville, under 8.5 to me is the lock of the millennium. I don't even have Louisville making a bowl game. I think they're going to have a disastrous year, and it's not all Jeff Brom's fault. I just think their roster is not as well set up as what a lot of people believe it to be. I mean, the bottom line is their NIL is a mess. You saw that situation play out in the offseason with multiple players, including like Petty Boone being a little bit of a higher echelon kind of player. He came into Louisville and then transferred back out and went to UCF. And then you also had the Reuben Owens flip a couple years ago as well. NIL at Louisville has been a mess. Their roster is not really keeping up, and their schedule is pretty tough for the ACC. I don't even think they're making a bowl game. Lock of the year. Louisville's not going any better than 8-4. Hell, I don't even know if they're going to do any better than 6-6. That's just how I feel about them. West Virginia, listen, I think their floor is 7-5. They're a really solid defense. They're going to run the ball very well with a pretty good offensive line, and their receivers are pretty all right. I think that West Virginia also just was able to create an identity for themselves that is going to be tough to stop. All right. I think, like I said, their floor is 7-5, and this win total is just a little bit low for my liking. Boston College, they're making a bowl game. I am going to continue to advocate for the Bill O'Brien offense up there at Boston College with the tools that their quarterback Thomas Castellanos has to work with. And again, the upgrade in quarterback play that Bill O'Brien gets from his guys in college. You go back to his time at Penn State, the best years for those guys at Penn State. Mac McGloin was terrible until Bill O'Brien came to town. Then he was a pretty good quarterback. Christian Hackenberg was a great quarterback as a freshman, looked like a surefire future first round pick, and then he fell off a cliff after Bill O'Brien left. He got a Heisman Trophy out of Bryce Young. I think that Bill O'Brien is going to make magic happen with Thomas Castellanos and those three receivers that they have on the outside. Boston College's offense is just going to be too good to miss a bowl game. I got Boston College over 5 wins. Wisconsin over 7 wins. If you've heard me sing the praises of Luke Fickell in Wisconsin, I am high on Wisconsin. I think that Wisconsin is set up the way right now Luke Fickell wants them to be set up for the future. And I think that this program is already essentially built in year 2. A lot of people are misled, including I think Vegas here, misled by the idea that Wisconsin's trying to go air raid. They're not trying to go air raid. Phil Longo is not an air raid, throw the ball around the yard type of guy. He was the mastermind behind Javonte Williams and Michael Carter's running back duo at North Carolina. He runs the ball. He uses air raid concepts in his dropbacks. He's not scared to use the short game in the air raid concepts, but they are not going to be an air raid offense, but they do have the wide receivers to be able to run Phil Longo's offense. And you saw it in the bowl game. I know LSU's secondary was terrible, but you saw it in the bowl game when Tanner Mordecai came back and they were able to put up points and yards, and Will Pauling looked amazing. Bryson Green looked amazing. Wisconsin's going to be a great team this year. They're going to win minimum 8 games. Georgia Tech, I think, just like Boston College, they're also going to make a bowl game. They start off week 0 against Florida State. I do not anticipate them winning that game, but the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets are going to have a very exciting offense, a pretty stingy defense too. And I think they're going to be a dangerous team in the ACC that could definitely nip somebody and get an upset there. They went 7-6, I believe, last year. I have a hard time thinking that even with maybe a tad more difficult of a schedule, I have a hard time thinking that Georgia Tech is going to do any worse than like 6-6. Not much worse than where they were last year, because I think they're really a better team than they were last year. Maryland, under 6.5 wins. I think a bowl game is very satisfactory for the Terrapins. Look, they do not have a solid answer at quarterback unless they surprise me. The only thing good about their team is their wide receiver core, and if they don't have a guy to throw them the ball, what are you going to do? You don't have the O-line to lean on Roman Hemby enough, and that defense is not very good. I think that 6-6 is probably the ceiling for them. I think I have them missing the bowl game with how tough the Big Ten is this year. Overall, I got Maryland going under 6.5 wins. Rutgers over 6 wins. Man, they made a bowl game last year. I think this schedule is a lot easier. They could go 8-4. So if you give me a push at 6-6, I guess, being the floor, fine. But they could very easily go 8-4 with the schedule that they drew. The toughness on defense, the running game with Kyle Monaghan, bringing in a guy like for example, Dymere Miller coming in from Monmouth, and then they also got a couple other guys like Christian Dremel also back as a weapon. And then, like I said, that defense is going to be really good. I think Rutgers is going to be a solid team, a tough out. But then finally, I'm going to give it to North Texas. Look, a lot of people will credit what G.J. Kinney did, and I think he was great in Incarnate Word in filling in for Eric Morris. But Eric Morris was the one who built what was going on over there at Incarnate Word. And I think having his son Chandler go over there with a chance, remember, he beat out Max Duggan a couple years ago, with a chance for him to complete his career, a much maligned career, with his pops, an offensive mastermind at that, who turned around a school in the state of Texas and made them a national championship contender. Cameron Ward, remember him, started there, right? I think that Eric Morris is going to get the North Texas Mean Green to a bowl game. I think they're going to be a pretty dangerous team in the American Athletic Conference. So there are my 10 locks of the year when it comes to win-loss totals. Comment your thoughts down below. And with that being said, about a 10-minute video. I'll see you guys in the next one, which will be the college football playoff predictions. Let's get excited, man. It's right around the corner.